Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to Since Day One. Before we start off where we left off yesterday, go ahead and like the video. Do not forget to leave your thoughts and opinions down below. And also, if you're new, don't forget to smash that subscribe button to take flight with us. Oh, and one more thing. My daughter wanted to come outside and play with her chalk today, so I'm going to try to read this book to you guys the best I can. But if y'all hear a little girl in the background, that's her. So y'all remember where we left off the last time? We figured out that Greg Landfair and Valerie Landfair allegedly knew about Rashona and R. Kelly, yet they chose to do nothing. And also, the last thing that Jim wrote was that Sparkle could not come into the office until Monday, and so that's where we're starting off. So Jim continues, that weekend was one of the longest of my life. I rehearsed as usual on Saturday at noon, playing drums with my punk band Vortis, then took my daughter to the movies early that evening to see Monsters Incorporated. I went grocery shopping on Sunday morning, then watched Super Bowl, but only because I had to review the halftime show on Deadline. I hate sports, low-key. YouTube performed with a melodramatic and bombastic tribute to the victims of 9/11, commenting on the televised music and broadcast spectacles like the Super Bowl and the Grammys ranked among my least favorite takes as a pop music critic. Watching the video with Sparkle the next day stands as the hardest thing I've ever done as a journalist. Early Monday morning, Sparkle walked off the elevator on the third floor of the Sun-Times, a full-on diva, wearing a white fur coat over a glittery purple dress, sporting dark blue eyeshadow and a bright lavender lipstick, her long blonde hair flowing down her back, uncertain about where to find me. The business reporter she met in the elevator led her to the desk I rarely used in the features department. Pop stars didn't often come into the office, and certainly not dressed as a cutthroat femme fatale. Somebody's here to see you, Dero, my colleague said as we headed to the video closet. He silently mouthed, "Wow." While we watched the tape, which was indeed the same one the man who came to her apartment had shown her, Sparkle wasn't a pop star or a diva. She was a worried and sickened 26-year-old named Stephanie Edwards, who grew up singing in the church and who'd seen her dream of a musical career recast as a nightmare. She trembled at times as she spoke. There were no tissues in the video closet, so when she began to cry, I pulled the handkerchief out my left pants pocket and handed it to her. She laughed. It seemed like a very old-fashioned thing to do, but my stepdad always carried a handkerchief, and since I emulated him in many ways, so did I. I'd had a woman close to me share her story of assault before in college. Then I just listened. Now I had to ask questions. It was my job. In a claustrophobic space, while the worst video I'd ever seen played for us, I don't think any actress could fake the emotion Sparkle showed about what she saw happening to my heart, her niece, or about the way it had torn her family apart. I mean, the most horrible thing about the tape is when he's relieving himself in her mouth, and I can't even fathom. Sparkle had introduced Rashona to R. Kelly when her niece was 12. She reminded me, hoping he'd help her musical career. She clearly felt incredible guilt for that. She repeated that Rashona looked to be 14 on the tape. R. Kelly was just shy of or had just turned 32. She doesn't have her hair like that now. She wears braids now. And by this tape, it looks like she's been doing it longer than 14. It's definitely a plan, a script. She's used to it. She's like, now I have to do this. And like, y'all, I be thinking, like, what if she really tried to go and tell her parents, but they turned a blind eye? Or maybe her mom tried to, like, talk to her about it low-key, like it's really not a big problem. And she just felt like, well, damn, like, my own parents ain't even doing nothing about it, so now I'm just stuck messing with him. Like, okay, so he tells me what I gotta do, and I gotta do it. My parents not even gonna save me. And it's like the one person, Stephanie Sparkle, like the one person who was fighting for her, was trying to do everything in her power to, like, get some help for them. Like, her parents just, like, blocked everything out. And, like, that makes me so mad. Because it's like, we could have been and had a judgment a long time ago. But y'all playing. Okay, so it goes on to say, Sparkle grew most emotional when talking about how R. Kelly handed Rashona money. She is not a effing whore. I hadn't noticed what Kelly gave her when I'd watched before, only that something changed hands. Sparkle asked me to rewind and pointed to the screen. Now I saw the cash. You see that? He's paying her money. That thought made her furious, and she broke down, racked by sobs. "He has to stop," Sparkle said when she caught her breath. "There have been too many to count. They definitely had to be young. His whole MO, he stated this to me long ago. He likes them when they are ripe and young because he can mold them into what he wants them to be and control their minds and make them do what women should do. That's what he thinks, be a servant, be the yes." She's on there calling him daddy. What kind of daddy would do this to their daughter? Of course, I asked Sparkle who she thought brought me the videotape. She said she didn't know. Journalists often say or ask something because they're fishing for a reaction or floating a trial balloon, if you prefer the metaphor. I said I thought R. Kelly's ex-manager Barry Hankerson had to be angry about what R. Kelly had done to his niece Aaliyah. He was also disgusted by his former client's compulsion to pursue underage girls. He'd asked his lawyer to confirm to me that he made the claim in his resignation letter. "Did he steer the tape to me? I don't know," Sparkle said. "I'm sure he would tell you. He'd have no problem telling you. Hankerson never did." After Sparkle left on Monday, I called John M. Toohey, Kelly's Chicago-based attorney, as Hayner and Damon Dunn instructed. I told Toohey the paper had received a videotape apparently showing R. Kelly having contact with an underage girl, and the attorney could come to the office to view it and comment. He declined. It was, Toohey later wrote, an invitation that I was unable to accept at that time. On Tuesday, Abden and I returned to the modest cream-colored stucco house that we'd first visited 13 months earlier in Oak Park. A village of 52,000 people, Oak Park is actually the 29th biggest city in Illinois, one of the quaint storefronts and beautiful turn-of-the-century houses, including 25 designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, whose home and studio were there. It all provides a stark contrast to Chicago's neighboring West Side. Immediately across Austin Boulevard, many of the stores that burned there during the 1968 riot still haven't reopened. Half a century later, driving away from Lake Michigan through the west side to Oak Park can feel at times like traveling from a post-apocalyptic landscape to Main Street, USA. In Disney World. No one answered the door at the Landfair home on the trip or during our next two visits, the first on a relatively balmy 32-degree afternoon, and the second that evening when the temperature had plummeted and we stood shivering on the doorstep. The family seemed to have left town. We later learned they'd gone to Europe, ostensibly for a tour for the cause. An R&B group comprised of Rashona and three of her cousins. But they stayed for several months. Rashona's parents, Greg and Valerie, did not return our calls. They weren't returning calls from family members either, Sparkle said. They already knew what was going on because Sparkle had sent some people to the house. Sparkle was trying to get the CPS people to talk to Rashona and the parents, and they just gave them cold stares, y'all. Like, wasn't even trying to talk to the people, just telling them ain't nothing going on, ain't nothing wrong, she's safe, she's fine, like, that's her godfather, he would have never do nothing like that. But I mean, any other case in Dallas, like, they're gonna, like for instance, if CPS or something came to your door and you wasn't cooperating, they can go get a court order from a judge and make you appear and, like, really get into your business. But I feel like that R. Kelly already had his hands in somebody's pockets in Illinois, because I feel like any other government official investigation would follow through thoroughly with or without the parents. Like, they're going to go get a judge or something and make it make sense. But let's continue. Oak Park and River Forest High School ultimately was stratified as the neighboring communities. On Wednesday, I interviewed several of Rashona's classmates, feeling decidedly creepy as I approached groups of girls carrying their backpacks and giggling when school let out. I found a trio who said they knew Rashona. She bragged about her friendship with R. Kelly, they said, and the student newspaper had published a photo of R. Kelly sitting in the bleachers watching her play basketball. The girls had heard about a video on the streets. They and other classmates I later talked to told me more about Rashona. A bubbly teen known for stopping and hugging friends in the halls between classes. She had as many white as black friends, and she was a good, though not great, student. She loved to listen to all kinds of music, shoot hoops, and hit North Riverside Park Mall after class, especially when the new Air Jordans arrived so she could be the first to wear them to school the next day. Meanwhile, Abden called a video expert slim to none, he said, when Abden asked about the possibility of fabricating such a tape. 26 minutes of putting someone else's head on someone's body. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of hours of frame-by-frame manipulation to make that work. Digital video didn't start to take off until the mid-1990s, and the ability to edit it on home computers only became widely available in the mid-2000s. On Thursday morning, I called Gerald Margolis, R. Kelly's celebrity attorney in LA, and left a message that the Sun-Times sought comment for a story about his star client and an underage girl in a videotape. John Toohey called me, "Any tape you have is a fake, and we find the timing of these events to be extremely suspicious," Toohey said of the video he had declined to watch. Asked about the investigation, Toohey said, "I would imagine that the police will do their job." Questioned whether he knew if R. Kelly videotaped his intercourse encounters, he snapped at me, "I don't think that's any of your business." After the Sun-Times published his first story about the tape, Margolis asked to see it, but the paper's editors and attorneys said it had been a one-time invitation. In a letter dated March 1st, Toohey wrote that that decision was grossly unfair. He also noted a videotape similar to the one described in the Sun-Times article has been available on an internet site. The owner of that site has been widely quoted in the press and also personally stated to us that the videotape he placed on the internet is a fake and that he put it on the internet to demonstrate it is not Mr. Kelly. Abdin and I watched that scene, and indeed it was not R. Kelly. It also was not the tape that we'd received. By Thursday evening, Abdin and I had written the final draft of our story. It had been ran by Hayner in the copy desk, vetted by Dunn, and laid out by the designers. Abdin, Barron, Hayner, and I gathered in the conference room with Hook and Crook, editor Michael Cook, and publisher John Cruikshank, and the top bosses read the page proofs. The story did not name Rashona or Sparkle. Sparkle had talked on the record, but identifying her would mean effectively identifying her niece, an underage girl. The story did reveal for the first time that we'd received another video a year earlier, the one that came via FedEx. It appeared to show R. Kelly having intercourse with a different woman whose age and identity have not been determined. Based on what police told him that morning about the new tape, Abdin wrote, "Now with the video authorities tell the Sun-Times they are more optimistic about building a case against R. Kelly." At one point, Cook stopped reading and pounded the conference table with the palm of his hand. People do not want to read about urination in their morning paper. The language had become more discreet and less specific with each draft. But I argued that we had to include the specific act. We have to let people know that this is not a good time. Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson intercourse tape, I said, this is different. Cook conceded, but the sentence, the intercourse acts, including intercourse, fellatio, and urination, only appeared in the 30th of 36 paragraphs when the story ran as the smaller of the two on the front page on February 8, 2002, a week after I received the tape. Chicago police are investigating whether R&B superstar R. Kelly, part of today's opening act at the Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City, had intercourse with an underage girl and videotaped the illegal act. A 26-minute, 39-second videotape, which was sent anonymously to the Sun-Times last week, shows the singer-songwriter performing various intercourse acts with an underage girl. "I'm the little bit of hope. When my back's against the ropes, I can feel it. I'm the world's greatest," Kelly sang at the Olympics that day. The opening ceremony received the highest Nielsen ratings of any to that point, reaching an estimated 72 million viewers, according to the New York Times. R. Kelly belted out his new single from the movie Ali, another attempt at a rousing anthem like "I Believe I Can Fly." Complete with the gospel choir, the Olympics were a hell of a news peg, but the timing was accidental. The story was a complicated one, and it hadn't been ready to publish a minute earlier. R. Kelly spoke to Chicago's NBC affiliate WMAQ before he took the stage in Utah. "It's not true," the 35-year-old singer said. "All I know is this. I have a few people in my past that I've fired. People that I thought were my friends that's not my friends. It's crap. And that's how we're going to treat it. The reason that these things are happening, I really do believe, is because of the fact that I didn't fall back as far as blackmail was concerned. I didn't give them any money. The world is getting ready to watch me sing a song called The World's Greatest, and you've got a tape out here trying to ruin my career. I feel like I owe my fans." The videotape story got much more attention than anything Abdin and I have reported about R. Kelly before. Once again, the Associated Press has picked it up as the Chicago Sun-Times is reporting. recapping that the police were investigating a tape with an underage girl and prominently quoting R. Kelly's denial. No other news organization, locally or nationally, forwarded our work or added to the accusations in the weeks that followed. But this time, ministers and community activists in Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, Atlanta, and Los Angeles decreed the star's behavior. Many black women urged boycotts of stores selling R. Kelly's music and radio stations playing his songs. Few of those businesses complied. The singer's record label promptly released a one-sentence statement defending one of its biggest hit makers. R. Kelly has been with Jive Records for 11 years, and we fully support him and his music. On March 19, 2002, R. Kelly released his next album, a collaboration with rapper Jay-Z, The Best of Both Worlds. The disc had the combined marketing muscle of 4 record companies: Jay-Z's boutique label Rockefeller and R. Kelly's Rockland Records, and the larger labels for which the artist recorded, Def Jam and Jive. Sales proved disappointing for a joint effort pairing the biggest stars in hip-hop and R&B. The disc sold only 285,000 copies in its first week, at a time when superstar products still regularly moved 1 million units or more upon release. Although he didn't comment on the video story, Jay-Z distanced himself from R. Kelly, canceling the planned tour supporting the album. This time, a few of R. Kelly's peers weighed in, dissing R. Kelly. Rapper Nas told a concert audience, "We're not up here hurting children. We're not the best of both worlds." Cisco, who scored a hit with the R. Kelly-like thong song, released a new track with the call out, "The world's greatest, whatever, ain't nothing but a child herder." And multi-platinum producer Dr. Dre shelved a single by his own latest protege, R&B singer Truth Hurts, because it featured a cameo by Kelly. As a member of pioneering gangster rappers NWA, Dr. Dre had a hand in crafting vilely misogynistic tracks such as Find 'Em, Fuck 'Em, and Flee, One Less B, and I'd Rather F You. He also had beaten journalist Dee Barnes and tried to throw her down a flight of stairs, according to Rolling Stone, but he had limits. I haven't seen the video Dr. Trey told MTV, nor do I want to see it, because there's a kid involved. That's where I draw the line. Abden and I continued following every development on R. Kelly front through the winter and into the spring. In April 2002, R. Kelly sold his home in the converted Baptist church on George Street. He purchased it in the fall of 1994, and we believe it was the scene of both videos we've received. The singer had recently bought a sprawling 22,000 square foot stone mansion in South suburban Olympia Fields for $5 million. He'd always been impressed by the place when he drove by with his friends. He says in Solar Coaster, all the more so after he learned it had been built by an executive of his favorite restaurant.